Hello everyone, it's your girl Miss Angie, and we are back with I didn't put God first in my relationships. I did not pray about it, did not ask God about it, did not put him first in my relationships. And so, even before I even start on this, I also was thinking about in talking in this series that a lot of times we go through these things and we go through these different trials when it comes to relationships. And I do feel like God also had me learn different things to be where I am at today. But when I say, God was not included, it's very important that you include God in also your relationship decisions. If we can include God in praying on a job, if we can include God on praying on where to move, praying on how to be better parents, then we can pray for our relationships. And I've seen that. And that's, once we get through the full end of the story where that part of my testimony lies. But so getting back to it, last video we talked about BC. I kind of gave a little backstory on him. And so now I'm going to give a little backstory on pretty much this was a friendship that turned into a relationship. But like I said, I'm only going to give more backstory on this person before I kind of talk about both BC and this other person, because the story, they kind of weave in and out during the last few years of pretty much the stretch of my 20s, pretty much. So I know I'm not trying to confuse. I just want to kind of keep it structured as I talk about each situation. So my longest relationship was with, his abbreviations will be BP. With BP. So to give backstory on this situation, I was working still at McDonald's and working at Burlington and working at a recreational center during this time. So I met BP at work. Now, let me get back to this too. When you work, you tend to just gravitate or find people. This is where you find them people because excuse me, I wasn't the type person that was a club goer all the time. Me and my friends, we used to go out on Wednesday nights to the bar, to the clubs or whatever, do different things. But I wasn't like a avid club goer. Like I would go out sometimes on the weekends, hang with people. But for whatever reason, I was always finding people at work. So this is why all my relationships were usually majority was people dating people from work. So we probably go back to it like, oh, you already dated somebody from McDonald's. That is true. And by this time he was already gone. And like I said, I was already in other relationships and situationships after that, of course. But, so, people probably say, well, shoot, if it failed with somebody at McDonald's before, then why would you try again? Right. Young and decisions are made, right? Anyways, trying to keep it on track. BP and me were friends first. Let me make that clear because later down the line, there's a lot of like different things that were happening. So let me just make that clear. Me and BP were friends at first. When he got hired there, I was like, oh, okay, cool. He's attractive. He was a really handsome guy. And I didn't know at the time that he was actually younger than me. So he was younger by 3 years or whatever. But the type of person he was as he got comfortable working there, and of course, meeting people. His sister also had worked there first, who is his twin. So it was kind of like just that initial, on our shift, we just were like, everyone on that shift was fun. That was one of the like, yeah, you working in fast food, but it was just a shift where everybody kind of like bonded, and then it also was drama, but everybody pretty much got along is what I'm trying to say. That afternoon shift was a lot of us who were younger, and it was just one of those situations where everybody kind of gravitated and just bonded, and it was what it was. So me and BP built a friendship. We were always in there laughing, joking, being silly, talking about people. Like, yeah, it was just, you young, and that's just what it was. Always capping jokes and stuff like that. So that was what it was. Now I started to slowly build a liking for him. But that was later down the line. His sister ended up introducing him to another girl who worked there. Now, this girl was not, quote unquote, a best friend or anything like that, but she was cool. I also had been working with her before he had got there or whatnot. He was a real cool person. And so his sister ended up setting him up with her. Later down the line, throughout the friendship, they ended up breaking up. And there was stuff that he disclosed to me about how he felt really about this person. So respectfully, with this information, which is kind of like weird, once that relationship fizzled out, like I said, BP disclosed certain things to me. I'm not going to get on here blasting people but how he felt about that relationship, some things that he had learned. So that kind of opened up the door for our relationship to become closer as far as friends. And he kind of, just disclosed a lot of stuff as far as the breakup between them. Later down the line, our friendship got stronger. I was talking about relationships and stuff like that. Just, hey, what do you think about us, talking or whatnot? Now, I will say that looking at it now, me even knowing his ex-girlfriend, being around her and working, that probably wasn't the best. Because at the end of the day, there was that controversy of, oh, okay, so you talking to him now, and I knew it, and blah, 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 because I guess when they had broke up, she had ended up having speculation that me and him was together. But me and him never got together until like a year after all of this stuff that, the breakup and our friendship and stuff like that, because I was the one that wanted a relationship and he didn't want a relationship at the time, respectfully. So, overall though, BP was one of those people that I felt like he wasn't in the limelight. He was more like a secretive, laid back, like, yeah, he joked and laughed and stuff, but he would come in, do his job, work, go home, and be at home. He may talk to people, text or whatever, but that's really where he kept it at. And later down the line, he like built a passion for working out. He was just that type of person. He was a homebody type of person. Now, I think because of a lot of the bad relationships that I was in, I gravitated to his laid back personality. Now, don't get me wrong. It was also other girls who worked there that liked him, that had interest in him, that he also talked to on a friend, quote unquote, level, because there was other things later down the line that I saw. But we're going to leave it at that. It's laying down pretty much what this relationship looked like. So therefore, but for me, I gravitated to, he's laid back. He's not out here flashy. He comes to work. He goes home. And like I said, he had this collection of like collecting cars. He loved cars and stuff like that. So it was like, okay, this is more of a gentle, relaxed side. Now, of course, when we did get together, going out to eat, going to the movies and stuff like that, but he was never a club type of person. He was never going to drink. He was never going to smoke. He was that type of guy who was like, I'm not about to have anybody tell me how I need to be as far as like drinking, smoking in the club and stuff like that. That was never his atmosphere. He was very like, I'm on top of working, saving money, and I like, you know, I have a passion for collecting cars and stuff, and that's where it was. He liked basketball, like working out, like watching sports, and I was like, that is like the most calm type of person. And I'm like, I'm a calm type of person because, of course, yeah, I've been out and stuff like that, but I just, after the past relationships that I've had, it's like I just don't want to revisit that. I don't want to revisit that. I know what I'm looking for as far as what I thought I was looking for, just more of a laid back type of vibe. So anyways, this kind of concludes BP as far as like who he was, kind of where his position was, and kind of like setting, once again, trying to set the view for the next events that happen. Because of course, BP was my longest relationship. Me and him was together for 8 to 9 years, and we ended up having a child together. So I'm just trying to kind of like lay the foundation so that you guys can see what was happening. So anyways, I'm going to conclude this portion of the video, and then we'll be back on the next video kind of talking about where these two people kind of like weaved in and out, and just giving you guys the full story to lead you guys up to where I am now. So anyways, I hope you guys love this video. Please like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you guys on the next one.